Hi. So I'm going to talk today about an experiment that we've been conducting in the Faculty of Engineering. And my co-presenters are part of the team that was helping me actually deliver this. Okay? So the idea was, after COVID, I had invested an incredible amount of effort with their help and the help of the ETO group, who I'll mention later, to actually flip my classes. And I decided that there were a lot of good things about being able to let students decide if they wanted to come to class or not. Okay? And so we managed to convince the dean and Stephen Bailey, the head of Learning Space Management, that we should try this experiment. There's been a lot of effort that's gone into this thing. So, first thing to know is that I teach entrepreneurship courses. And I have adopted the case study method that was originated at Harvard University to teach these courses. I've been teaching school since 1969. When I graduated from McGill with my Bachelor of Engineering, I decided that I didn't want to get a job, a regular engineering job, and I went to Uganda for 2 years as a high school teacher. Okay, and I learned there that I hated standing up in front of students, reading from a book, droning on and on. Of course, they loved it because they like to learn everything by rote. But I was teaching maths, physics, chemistry. That's not something to learn by rote. So I've been struggling with lecturing forever. So when I discovered the case study method, I thought, wow, this is going to be great. So in the case study method, students learn by examining real-world examples of success and failure, and then in any particular subject matter, and then trying to apply that learning to examples of their problems assigned in the course. Okay, that's the standard case study method. During the pandemic, I learned about the flipped classroom, which for me was like a revelation. And I decided to flip all of my courses, okay? So all of the lecturing that I used to do, I recorded, okay? And I was able to edit the lectures, cut them, make them more focused, and eliminate all my efforts when I was lecturing of engaging with my students. You know, everybody who teaches knows this. It's so hard, when you're talking, it's so hard to get the students to respond to you, and you're putting in a lot of effort, and it's always 1 or 2 kids, right? And the rest of them just sitting there quietly. So I got rid of all of that and recorded everything, and I learned about trimming it all down into bite-sized chunks. And then I decided that the classroom was going to be all about workshops, about the assignments that I was giving them to try to apply the learnings from the recordings, okay? So the weekly scheduled classes in some of the courses, my summer course happens in, well, I'm giving it right now, a week on, a week off, a week on, a week off, and then it's done. Classes every single night. But the usual courses are once weekly, and the weekly are workshops, okay? So the purpose of the assignments, the challenge when you do it this way, is that you must engage with the students in the workshop mode. You have to give them feedback. All of the discussion is about the assignments, feedback on the assignments, guest lecturers, discussions constantly with engaging with each other and with the teacher. Okay, that's what is driving this whole process. Okay, so I had another revelation. I discovered Chickering's 7 principles. Has anybody ever heard of Arthur Chickering? Okay, this is the standard of, now there's 2 references down here. My discovery came when I saw someone write a paper that said, applying Chickering's 7 principles to remote learning. Until then, I didn't even know, I'd never heard of Arthur Chickering before. So this really is, Chickering's principles are the standard for good teaching practice, I learned. Good practice encourages student-instructor contact. And my workshops are all about that. I'm not standing up and lecturing them anymore. Good practice encourages cooperation among the students. So I'm actually showing their assignment results in class and getting them to talk to each other about what they did and getting them to learn from each other, okay? Good practice encourages active learning, and that's what the previous session was all about. So there's constant engagement between the instructor and the student in the workshops and between the students in the workshops. And because the workshops are all about their assignments. The things that, and they're driven, even graduate students are driven to get good marks, especially our students in engineering. And when they're, when they don't get 90%, they get very, very disappointed. Good practice gives prompt feedback. And that's what the workshops are all about. Good practice emphasizes time on task. One of the wonderful things about Quirkus is that it actually counts up the time that they're spending on the site. And I make them look at all the videos and all the notes and all the slides on the site so that I can tell how much time they're spending on the site and give them feedback on whether or not they're doing enough work to succeed in the course. So I'm able to do a lot more and better than when they were sitting in the audience and I was talking. Because like my friend Alan Weiss, when I was in high school, he'd have the book up so the teacher couldn't see what he was doing, and he had popular mechanics behind the book. And that's how I learned about popular mechanics and computers back in 1962. Good practice communicates high expectations. And that's what the workshops are also all about, especially when they hear each other's results and offerings from the assignments. And good practice respects diverse talents and ways of learning. And the flipped classroom online really does that. So much, it's so helpful. A lot of our students do have trouble engaging, especially with language issues. Some of them have families. A lot of them have full-time jobs. So what this whole method does is actually, what I've done, sort of accidentally, was working to Chickering's principles without really understanding fully until I actually did it. When we were allowed to come back to school, I was very excited about being able to teach on Zoom from the classroom. And it was really cool. I had students who would be, they were late, so I had people signing in from a streetcar. So you log in to Zoom from a streetcar, and then 20 minutes later walk in person and log off. Okay, and it created a lot of flexibility. And the interesting thing that I discovered was, toward the end of term, when they used to stop coming to class because they had they fell behind on other assignments, they stopped doing that, and they would log in. So toward the end of term, I'd get more people online than I would have, but I had them all attending. Okay, which I thought was a big deal for me, because in the past, they just sort of disappear right down to Christmas or whenever it was, and all of us have seen that. Okay, what I discovered was Zoom doesn't work by itself. The people online could not hear what was being said in the classroom, and they couldn't see the people in the classroom, okay? Sort of like listening to half of a phone call. And it was very frustrating. But this guy, James, who has been helping me for years, actually since my all opened, we became buddies, said, you know, Steve, we have something that could help this. And that's when I got involved with them. And so we went off and outfitted a classroom. And I'll let Dave explain what they did, what they do.
Hello, thanks, Steve. So for many of us that come into the U of T classroom spaces, there is an intercom button on many of the teaching stations that you can press. So we're the folks on the other end that provide that support. So as you may know, there's many classrooms on campus. They're designed in a specific way. Through the days of the pandemic, we realized that we need to create a little more flexibility. And as Steve mentioned, our director, Steve Bailey, connected us with Dr. Trieber. And with that, we were already kind of developing different new ways of supporting folks in the classroom spaces, and also some of the technology behind it. So when we met, it actually made a lot of sense, because we were thinking about how we integrate cameras into the classrooms and conferencing systems into the classrooms to make it and engage encouragement, which is important for the student learning experience, and as well to take some of the burden away from instructors so they can focus on the important things, which is teaching and engagement. So without just reading what we have on the slide, you guys can read it yourself. That's kind of how we connected through Steve Bailey, through the program, some of the development in terms of what Tech2U has turned into now. And as well, if you have a chance, come up to My Hall 360. We actually have Steve's exact technical setup in there, if you'd like to, check it out.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, so let's talk about what we did. The room, Wahlberg 219, already had Nureva speakers and microphone at the teaching station. So we were 2/3 of the way there. And then they added this Sony point, tilt, and zoom camera into the classroom. So what I would do is I would log into my Zoom session on my PC, show that on one screen, and then log into that Zoom session from the teaching station, which is connected to the camera pointing at the classroom, and the students who joined online could then hear and see the people in the class. Okay, and the amazing thing that happened is now you've got all this conversation going on between everybody. There was no division between who's in person and who's online. Okay, which is like a really, really amazing evolution of learning for me. So there's a whole few steps that you have to, there are some things that we still haven't got all of it glitched out. It's not foolproof. Okay, I like to say that one of the expressions that describes the PhD can be poor helpless dummy, as well as piled higher and deeper, and every once in a while I fall into one of those. When I get distracted, if I don't log on the right order, then things can go wrong. And they've been helping me. We had one problem last fall when the heat was turned on in Wahlberg. The video card started overheating, and we had to open up the teaching station. Well, it's so crammed full of technology now. And Mark put in some fans, and the problem's gone. So each time we're basically doing it in person, finding out what can work and what doesn't, fixing it, and moving forward. And we proposed, all of this was proposed to Steve Bailey and to Dean Yip as an experiment. And believe me, without their support, none of this would have happened. Anyway, the important thing now is that there's no difference between the students online and the students in person. And I've done it now twice, and there's no difference in their performance in terms of the assignments that they're doing, their engagement, and so on, which to me actually was a revelation, because I wasn't sure that would happen. So I teach 3 courses. The one that was the inspirational one for all of this is called APS 1088. I teach engineering students how to start a technology business, which is based on my career in business. I've been running my own businesses for 40 years. The students are introduced to business development tools, and then they get to apply those to their own business idea. Okay, so this is a variant on the classical case study method. In the classic case study method, the professor gives them a problem, and they all work on the problem, and all come back with answers. And then you compare them and have a discussion about that. Here, they're all bringing their own unique business idea, and I'm teaching them how to turn that into a successful business. That raises some problems because every assignment now, their submissions are all different. There's no right answer. In fact, there's no right answer even for what they're doing, but none of them are answering the same thing. So that's a challenge for me. APS 1035 is a startup course for new businesses. It's really basically a sales course, how to sell new technology to people. New technology has never been used by anybody, okay? The students are organized here into sales teams, and they go through role play where I have TAs who I give scripts, and the students get scripts, and they try to sell us an actual real product. So they have to do research on this real product on the internet, and then come and become the sales team selling us, the customer, this product. All of the exercises are carried out fully in role play, and that's the essential part of the course. Everything else is about passing on data to them about how to do this, then do the exercise, then learn from that exercise, apply it to the next one, and so on. The third course is one I'm giving right now. It's a summer short course, and it's about business strategy. And I put the students into teams, and the teams are solving an unsolved real-world business problem. The first year I gave it was, the case was Amazon buys Whole Foods and starts to move into the grocery business. What's Walmart going to do? Interestingly, I had a retired Walmart Canada CEO as a guest speaker. And I gave him some of the students' solutions. And astonishingly, a couple of them were adopted by Walmart Canada and Walmart in the United States. Now, Mario, his name is Mario Pelosi, I asked him, and he would not acknowledge that any of my students' input was actually used by them, but I actually saw it happen in the stores. So, let's talk about APS 1088. When the class became in person and optionally online, enrollment went up a lot, okay? Before COVID, I would typically have like 10 to 12 students take this course. I had 24 sign up for it. Thank God, there's a lot of students who sign up and never intend to take a course. So in the end, I think I ended up with 15 last year taking this course. But I learned that that's because of the way this course is deployed, with each of them submitting something different for each assignment, that's pretty much my limit. I can't handle more, okay? I've now asked the faculty for permission to split it in two and make them choose at the beginning of the year whether they're going to take the in-person version in the fall or the online version in the winter. We have no current way of forcing them to make that choice, because we don't have the mechanisms to do it. So there's a whole bunch of divisional things that we can't actually do yet. So I'm still waiting. The Engineering Graduate Education Committee is still pondering what to do. We don't have any rules, because we're all this is all a new game for us, right? And it's going to take some time to figure out how to do this right, and when to apply it and when not to. Okay, this course, because of the engagement, the role play, individual and engagement between salesman and customer, it doesn't work to two dimensions of Zoom. And I'm going to teach this course in person only and not allow any online engagement at all, because it doesn't work. I have children who are, well, they're adults, who work for consulting firms, and all of the salespeople I know, COVID was horrible for them because of the difficulty of actually being able to sell any kind of technology in that environment. And I'm trying to teach students skills that they'll be able to use when they leave school. I mean, we all are, really, but in my case, specific kinds of skills that are rarely taught at university, right? So, in person only. This one works great in this mode, okay? For one reason, they work in groups, okay? Thank God for that. Last year I had 12. The word gets around. This year I decided that I was going to walk the talk. You know, I said we're going to have so many students. If I didn't have the cap, I took the cap off. I allowed 62 students. Wahlberg 219 holds 62 students. I said, fine, 62 can enroll. After the drop date last year, I had 12 taking this course. Now I have 44 fully engaged. Working in groups of 4, so there's only 11, it's still a lot. And because it's a short course, I have very little time to come back to them with a feedback, because the assignments are a ladder. So the result of the first assignment is stuff that they can use in the second assignment. And the second assignment and first assignment feed into skills that they need to do the third assignment. So the response time I have is very, very limited, but it's doable with this, and I intend to continue doing this now. It's been defined as an in-person course because I'm in person, okay? So we're cool there. So of the 3, the conclusion is not all are appropriate for online teaching. I mean, it's just the reality. Some are better than others, okay? But the important thing that I've come away from this is flipped makes the case study method so much more powerful than its original structure, the way it was originally conceived, okay? It is, for me, you know, I've been teaching for a long time, and it's a wonderful thing. I'm so excited that I'm going to be able to keep doing this for as long as I can still walk and climb stairs. I'll keep doing it because I'm very excited about what I'm doing. The students love it. The level of engagement I have from them is like I've never had that before. Right? I mean, you know, last night, so we're getting toward the end. Last night I had 11 in class, 25 online, and then there's a few who missed it, okay? But I record every live workshop so they can watch the video after the fact, okay? And I'm pretty sure that there's 2 or 3 who never attend, okay? They're in China. I have another one in Lebanon. The time scale doesn't work for them, or they have jobs, but I have had that happen in the past, and in terms of performance on their work, there's no difference, okay? Just because of the way I'm teaching it, okay? So here's where I am on this, and I think a lot of us agree about this. Online learning is now and will be an important part of professional education, okay? It is already, and it's going to be even more important in the future. Because it gives our students more control over how they learn. Okay, this has never happened before. In my years of being a student at university and being a teacher at university, there's never been a situation like this before where the students can learn at the highest level how they want. And I think we need to recognize that they're our customers, and we need to think about how to serve them the best way. Of course, we all want to, right? But we need to think about it that way. And so that's my story. I want to make sure to acknowledge Dean Yip and Steve Bailey, because without their approval, none of this could have happened. And I also want to acknowledge the ETO team of Allison Van Beek, Anna Limani, and Joanna Lau who were the people who helped me flip. Okay, a massive struggle. I was lucky it happened in winter. COVID hit when I wasn't teaching. I would not have been able to do it. And even without their help, I would have been totally lost. And of course, these guys we're a team. And without their involvement, without their full engagement, I wouldn't even be able to do it now. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Yeah. What's your name?
I'm Sam from Macmaster University. I'm an educational lead developer.
Okay.
I'm an instructional designer, technology designer at University of British Columbia, Vancouver. And when COVID happened, everything went online. And it was very new. We were trying to incorporate some technological advances, but it was challenging at the time. But I saw one of the bullet points here, conclusion that said not all subjects could be used for online. It's open to debate, because from an instructional design perspective, anything could be turned into an online learning experience as long as the online learning design has the elements of active learning or assessment is in line with those, instructional practices.
So the problem with the course that I'm going to go back to in-person learning is that you can't, when you're selling a product, you're in a position where you're trying to explain things, so you're talking, but you're trying to find a way of listening to hear what the other person is saying. And doing it in 2D to a face is near impossible. You have to be able to see the body language. I like to say maybe one day in the metaverse, it'll be possible to engage with other people that way, okay? But without that kind of and I'm only limiting it to my subjects, okay? There could be other subjects. For example, if you wanted to try to do this with something hard, like let's say thermodynamics, and you wanted to give a demonstration of the effect of the first law. All right, you need to create complex simulations. You need to create problems that the students could apply in that same environment that's different than the example you gave them. And they have to be able to see it in a simulation that allowed a almost physical representation, which to me means 3D. And I don't think that that's actually doable. Now, I know people have taught thermo online, flipped, but not the way I just described it, okay? But the sales thing, you just can't do it. And I know lots of professionals who were doing it because they had no choice, and all of them were having serious, serious difficulty. So we're only going to learn.